there, vinyl junkies, and welcome back to another top 1000 vinyl albums of all time. Well, top 1000 vinyl albums that I have and are in my possession somewhere in this massive wall of vinyl behind me. It is great. It's good sound insulation too. I can't hear next door through this wall. Anyway, I thought we'd go a bit different. Yeah, we've picked artists and particular themes, but we haven't had soundtracks yet, so I thought, just to mix things up a bit, I'd pick out some really, really good soundtracks that I think are deservedly in this top 1000 list. And the first one, I had to pick this. It is a great album, a great film as well, perhaps not as good as the first film, but I do hear that there is finally a long-awaited third instalment to this series on the way, and that is Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. Bill and Ted, excellent! Oh, what do you mean you're filming this? Oh, for God's sake. Anyway, on this album we've got contributions from a whole load of different artists, and some of these tracks actually only featured in snippets in the film, but they're still good tracks nonetheless. We've got stuff like Tommy the Cat by Primus. That is such a great track, well worth listening. But then we've got some big names in here. We've got Faith No More, The Perfect Crime. We've got Go to Hell. Not one of the best Megadeth tracks, but good track nonetheless. And the big single from the film, God Gave Rock and Roll to You Too, performed by Kiss. Oh, that really was the soundtrack of this film. Made it big in the charts. A lot of radio play. Great track. But then we've also got some of the pivotal tracks from the movie. We've got a track called The Reaper, which performed by a gentleman called Steve Vai. And that dude can play guitar. But then also the Reaper rap. You remember this from the end credits, which has little samples and snippets from the film put in. And it's just great in every way. It's a good, fun film. It's dated a little bit, but not too badly. I mean, when you compare it to films like Weird Science, which just like blows and sucks at the same time, this film is still a good, energetic, right royal rumpus to watch. Now, the next film soundtrack that I've picked is a little bit more obscure, but this goes back to a time when, yes, even blue movies, porn films, had a proper, decent, high-budget soundtrack. So, God, people's ears have pricked up. That porn film? Oh, well, we're interested. No, it's artistic. Yeah, that's right, if it's French, it's got tits in it. It's artistic, you're allowed to see French tits. And this is Vampyros Lesbos, the Sexadelic Dance Party. And this is the original motion picture soundtrack, conducted and written by Manfred Hübler and Siegfried Schwab. This was it's a film. It was a film that had quite a strange mixed background. I think it was Italian funded, German soundtrack, and certainly there was a German version. It was the German name, Sie Tote in Ecstasy. But in Britain, if you were dirty enough in the 70s to have gone to a blue movie and seen it, it would have been known as Vampyros Lesbos Sexadelic Dance Party. And we got a quite artsy pictures. It is very early 70s on the background, and we've there got a picture of Istanbul, fur coat, fur parka, and I have to say, it does slightly amuse me, the label that this was released on. Crippled Dick Hot Wax. Ooh, ouchies. But the soundtrack itself is actually well worth listening to on its own. I mean, I must level with you here. I've never seen the film and don't really have any interest in seeing the film. But the soundtrack, this is something that is well worth buying and listening to. It's probably quite difficult to track down now. I got this when it came out on reissue in the late 1990s. And if you're into sort of your Lalo Schifrin and that kind of thing, this is certainly one to look out for if indeed you haven't already come across it. Already. Inside, inner sleeve, we've got pictures, stills from the film. We've got quite a few there. You can see a little bit cheesy it was. There's nothing particularly pervy in these pictures, but we've also got a lowdown telling you about the composers of the film, the composers of the music, a little bit about the film itself, and also about the actresses. So if you're really interested in all that sort of thing, everything is here. And it's actually a 1995 reissue. Now, the third and final film soundtrack that I've picked out of my collection here is actually a Bond soundtrack. And it's certainly certainly the 60s and 70s Bonds, and even into the 80s, some of the soundtracks were really, really quite good in their own right. And they're actually very difficult to get hold of, and it's something that's quite annoying. If it's not the current Bond film, they just don't seem to cater for people who might actually want to listen to the versions of the James Bond theme that were in, you know, in this case, From Russia with Love. And this is one that I tracked down in a junk shop. I think I only paid about 10p for it. And it's an original mono pressing. This is back in the days when, if you were a cheapskate, you could have mono equipment and it'd be a bit cheaper. And they used to do mono and stereo mastered albums. This is the mono version. There may well have been, and probably was, a stereo version, but I haven't got it. And depending on the period, either the stereo, if it's the early stereo period, or mono, if it's the late mono period, can actually be far more valuable versions. Now, I don't know whether mono or stereo was the more common when this was out, but this just happens to be the mono version. And we've got the lovely picture on the front there, still from the film. And so I never noticed when watching the film, you can see her underwear. She's clearly a lady of class. She's wearing stockings and suspenders. Yeah, we've had the porn film soundtrack. Yeah, you're paying attention now, aren't you? Where were you when I was doing previous videos? Mention of stockings and suspenders, and you were literally glued to the screen. Help! I'm glued to the screen. Actually, I don't want to think about that. Mind bleach, please. But on this, we've got opening titles. James Bond is back, From Russia with Love, and also the James Bond theme. And then some of these tracks, they're really quite nondescript titles, and they're pretty much background music. But when you listen to the album, they really do set the 60s film noir feel of the Bond film. And we've got some really great tracks on here, certainly from my DJing days when I used to DJ in clubs. There's some really good bits in here that I used to like mixing in with a bit of David Holmes track that I think we've done David Holmes, the album that's got Radio 7 on, which is kind of a remix of the Bond theme. But I used to like starting my set with James Bond with bongos from this album and mix it into that, and it kind of eased you into the night. It's really good. But then we've got Man Overboard, Smirch in Action, Spectre Island. We've got obviously From Russia with Love, sung by Matt Monro, but then Gypsy Cap, 007, Bond meets Tanya, Girl Trouble, that kind of thing. But it's a really, really good album, and what it shows is that there's more to a Bond film than just what you see on screen. There we have it, 3 more excellent vinyl albums here to add to the top 1,000 vinyl albums from this collection. Anyway, vinyl junkies, until next time, you keep on spinning those discs, and don't forget to leave a comment below if you really want to say how wonderful I am. Oh yes. Or if you just want to comment on any of the albums that I've done, or indeed try suggesting some of the albums that could be forthcoming. There's no guarantee that they'll get in. It really all depends on whether I actually have them on vinyl. But also, don't forget to like this video and share it too. And you take good care of yourself. And, well, I'll be seeing you next time.